to start with
Sure.
a video circulating in the Indian media about two women being gang raped and paraded on streets. Prime Minister has called it a national shame. I guess if you have seen this video, what are your comments on that?
I've not seen the video. This is the first that I'm hearing of it. But as I stated before, our hearts break whenever there's human suffering, whether it's in our neighborhood or across the globe, or in the country where we're living. So our hearts continue to go out to the Indian people. As I've said, this is an Indian matter, an internal matter. But of course, we are always here as fellow human beings sympathizing with that sort of pain and that sort of suffering.
Mr. It's about a month now that the Prime Minister visited on an official state visit. Can you give us a sense what happened during those 3 days and how it has changed the relationship?
You know, it was the most extraordinary visit, I think, certainly in the history of US-India relations. We've had some very large moments in the past, the civil nuclear deal, moments when Prime Minister Nehru came as the Prime Minister of an independent India. But this was probably the deepest and widest agenda of not just aspirations, but real deliverable things for our economy, for defense. The four Ps, as I call them, the peace, the prosperity, the planet, and the people that we represent. And since then, it hasn't let up. Both my colleagues in India have said that the Indian government has been following up with a series of meetings to implement the agreements. And we here, one of the reasons I'm in Washington, is to keep that momentum going as our president comes to Delhi for the G20 meeting.
What are the key elements, key deliverables that came out of this meeting, key points?
There are so many key deliverables. Obviously, one that got a lot of attention is the GE jet engine deal, which will fundamentally change the level of cooperation we have on the next generation of Indian fighter jets and also integrate our militaries and our defense together. But I can also think of other things like the relaxing of the tariffs and the trade war that we had during the Trump years, in which steel was taxed here and we had American agricultural products taxed in India. That's a huge change. Makes something for Indian workers that are in the steel sector and for our agricultural products finally have free flow. Educational exchange, we grew and expanded. And I think the last area is our critical emerging technologies, whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it's quantum computing, whether it's space, or whether it's the telecommunications. I think India and the United States really want to cement a deep friendship and co-production and the research and development together of the future, underscored by our values. We can either use technology to hurt people, divide people, or we can use it to connect people, protect people, even detect diseases and heal people. So to me, that was one of the best outcomes, not just for India and the United States, but also for the world.
Where does this relationship goes from here in the short term and the long term? Short term, we see President going to India in September for the G20 summit.
Well, I would say that the US-India relationship, the sky's the limit. But since we're collaborating in space, maybe even the sky's not the limit.
Right.
We are going, from the depths of the ocean to the heavens in terms of the work that we're doing, space, the maritime domain. I think by the end of the year, our leaders will have seen each other face to face 6 or 7 times in a single year.
Right.
So we know the rapport that they have together, but it also reflects the hard work and the integration of our governments. And that in turn reflects business investment and the people-to-people ties. We have a record number of visas that we're going to process this year in our consulates and in our embassy from India. So that's reflecting, I think, that India loves America and America loves India.
No, your story reflects from Hollywood to Bollywood, right? From LA to Mumbai. In the last 3.5 months, I guess you traveled to 12 states, visited across the country. I see your Twitter feeds. You enjoy your Indian food. What is your impression about India now, representing world's oldest and most powerful democracy in the world's largest democracy?
My time for the last few months in India has made me fall in love with India all over again. The people, the culture, the food, the diversity, the struggle, the success. This is in so many ways the future, but it also links us in so many ways to the past. It's a unique country, a crossroads and a bridge. And for me, I want to introduce more Americans to that India. Part of my job as an ambassador is not just to bring India to America, but to bring America to India so that we can see that. And I do think that this chapter, I'm noticing it, whether it's in the buildings coming up in Hyderabad, whether it's the infrastructure that I saw in Mumbai and Kolkata that's being done, or just even at the village level. a chaiwala using a UPI to accept a payment, that India isn't just someone's back office. It isn't just coming out of poverty. It's producing ideas, it's producing companies, it's producing things that are improving people's lives in India and potentially throughout the world. So I think if we strengthen this bridge, both directions, really we can do anything together, whether it's health, whether it's defense, whether it's economic prosperity, or even women's empowerment.
Do you think that Americans have a better understanding of India, or work needs to be done?
I think Americans are starting to have a better understanding of India. But beyond loving the food, 1 in 4 Americans being treated by an Indian doctor who's
Right.
immigrated here, I think they're beginning to ask even deeper questions. Tell me more about the culture, the history. Maybe I want to visit as a tourist. Maybe I'd think about studying there if I'm a university student, invest there if I have capital. These things are deepening that relationship beyond the positive kind of surface level feelings that Americans have to really getting to the core of what I hope will be a 50-year friendship that will deepen both our countries' experiences.
In his remarks, the president several times mentioned three words that struck
Mhm.
me. That these two are two great democracies,
Yes,
two great powers, and this can be used for global public good.
that's right.
You have been talking to the president quite
Yeah,
often. Can you give us a sense what went into his thought when he used these words
absolutely.
quite often?
I think that President Biden, who has probably been the most pro India president we've ever had, understands what's at stake. That this isn't just about good relations. This isn't just about deterring bad actors. This is about raising the potential of our two countries to not be 2 + 2 = 4, but that we could be, 2 × 2 × 2 ×
Right.
2. It's exponential in what we can produce together. So sometimes it's fear and common challenge that brings us together, whether it's making sure we de-risk supply chains, have freedom of navigation, deal
Right.
with climate change. But it's also good opportunities about how we can raise people out of poverty, empower women, make sure that all people have a sense of belonging in our very diverse countries. And to me, that's the most exciting place. And I've heard both leaders in their private conversations really engage about values: democracy, rule of law, freedom, and that contrast with parts of the world that don't have those values.
So, in these sectors, India and US can work together for global public good. You think?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that what India's done on the digital public infrastructure is a great example. The
Right.
Life Initiative, which tells us to not just ask for policies, but change our own behavior to save our planet. These are great examples of where India is inspiring America, and I hope that America inspires India every day too.
What about Prime Minister Modi? What do you think your impression about his vision of India-US relationship?
I know he was. I was told by everyone around him, and he
Right.
expressed it to me too, how happy he was with this visit. I think he understands that America is the place where, when India and America are together, we can find breakthroughs to cancer and tuberculosis. We can figure out safer ways to protect our countries. He seems to be, just as Joe Biden is the most pro, Indian president we've had. I think this is the most pro-American prime minister in many ways, and he balances all the relationships around the world. But he's somebody who understands there is a special person-to-person relationship between the U.S. and India, and in many ways, he embodies that with Joe Biden.
Or second last question,
Mhm.
where do you see the challenges in this relationship now? Could be some roadblocks.
There will always be places where we might disagree, or the way that we say things is felt on one side or the other is not going far enough. But I'm actually optimistic in all arenas. Some people say we can't engage on values, human rights, democracy. I've witnessed that we do, and we will continue to. Maybe it's on trade, where we see, okay, India still has the most protectionist measures of any major economy in the world. I see a desire to bring those down in order to have manufacturing, iPhones, maybe Teslas, others come in, key American technologies and brands. So I don't see a lot of places of friction. And where I've seen friction, what gives me a lot of hope is we're able to resolve them very quickly. No friendship, no relationship, no marriage is always agreeing all the time. But what we do have is the ability to talk to each other frankly and get to a yes or an understanding with each other and move on to the places where we agree totally.
Do you see human rights in Ukraine as areas of friction or
There are areas of difference, but
okay?
there are also areas of opportunity. We'll keep expressing our values. We're not going to stop speaking out about the Russian invasion unprovoked of Ukraine,
Mhm.
and pointing out that sovereignty and borders mean something to every country, including India. Those are values worth fighting for and worth defending. on the flip side, we listen to India. This is not a relationship where America is coming to teach India and India is the student. We both need to be students and teachers to each other. When we have that sort of a relationship, I think, again, the future is limitless.
Did you get a chance to watch Indian movies?
Yeah, of course.
Which are those you watch? Which is
But
the
my favorite, which is a couple years old now, that I watched is The Disciple. It's a beautiful film about somebody who's trying to become a classical Indian singer, and it was just a gorgeous film that took us to the heart of what Indian culture and contributions to the world are. But it was just beautifully shot as well. And there's a lot of fun ones too, but I think The Disciple is the best one that I've seen in the last couple of years.
I follow your Twitter account and I see you trying with lot of Indian foods
Yep.
from Mumbai to Bengal
Yeah.
and from Andhra Bhavan. Which was your favorite dish?
I love starting a day with an idli
Idli.
and some chutney, and I'm good for the entire day. I had a lentil puri on the streets of Kolkata that was one of the best things I've ever tasted as well. I can't pick one because every place I go, I had a biryani, a Hyderabadi biryani that was home cooked by someone. It was also one of the best meals I've ever had. Every week, I feel like I should have an Indian cooking show because I'm learning more and more about the different villages, the different states, and I just love Indian food from north, south, east to west.
When the president travels to India in September for the G20 summit, is there anything that which is left from this historic visit that needs to be accomplished?
The visit to Washington was not an endpoint. It was a stop on a car ride with two men, two governments, two countries riding together. And the next stop is going to be at the G20. And absolutely, we had such ambitions for the visit here that there's a couple handfuls of very important things: further defense collaboration, further economic breakthroughs, further technology and education projects. So some of my meetings this week have been all around that. And there's such excitement in America. If I could say one thing to our Indian viewers, America is so excited about India right now. And we really want to bring more students, more research, more academic exchanges, more culture. This is a moment for, I think, India to capture and a moment for America as well to savor.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great to talk to you.